Welcome to the Theory of DFS podcast. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Ed on Twitter, Blender HD. I'm the co-author of The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass that you can find at theoryofdfs.com. Learn the entire game theory of DFS. Me in your pocket, me and James McCool. It's a nice little reference guide with how to think like a professional DFS player, and to join me, another professional, if you want to call us professional DFS players. I know we make money playing DFS. It's Erik Beimfohr who's back. We're late this week. Normally we're on Tuesdays, but your dog seemed to want to eat everything in sight and had to go to the vet. I couldn't find a replacement as I normally, scramble to do so. So he said, we'll do it on Thursday. And you weren't here last week, Erik, but I talked to Davis about NBA Top Shots. We tried to relate it to DFS to some extent, like what's the edge and kind of similar type of things. I know you've bought in some of these fucking things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you listened to last week's podcast, but are you more on my side or his side? I'm assuming you're on his side.
So maybe in the middle. So I treat it kind of differently. That like when I didn't know what the hell this shit was until Bales wrote about it. And, you see it just like everybody else did on Twitter. And my first take is like, holy shit, this is stupid. Like I think that's what most people's take is. And I still really kind of believe that. I don't get kind of why they built the product exactly the way that they did, like with the moments and all that. I think that they made it more difficult on themselves than it had to be. But I'm not certain that this product is going to win long term or be around forever. But I am just kind of interested in the digital collectible space. I have no idea if it's going to work. I have no idea if this product is going to work. But I do think that I'm interested in dabbling in it and just kind of seeing what's out there.
Are you going on the marketplace and flipping stuff?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so then why can't Erik? Why can't you just admit it's a short-term flip play? You invested a little bit of money that you fully have in your head that this could easily go to zero.
Yeah.
And you're perfectly fine. It's very similar to a DFS contest. I'm going to enter the 888 today. I'm going to enter the Game Changer. I'm going to enter the Thunderdome, knowing that I don't know if I have an edge here. I don't know if this is a thing. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm going to dive in and spend enough time to fully take advantage of my edge. And if it goes to zero, it only represents a small percentage of my bankroll, and you take a shot. It's like sometimes I play this whatever 888 or whatever contest, and I'll be like, today I feel like taking a shot, and I'm not trying to convince anyone else to do the same. And if I can make some short term, nice little shot. I did. I played soccer on Tuesday. I normally play soccer, and they have a 333. I typically just play cash in soccer. Sometimes I'll throw my lineup in a small field, like $12, $9 single entry. The soccer lobby is not big. So the $9 single entry is still only 98 entries. So first place is $150. So it's kind of a little upside there. And occasionally I'll play the featured high stakes, which is typically 222, 333, 400, 200, that range. Typically around 100 entries. It's a 3 max. I don't play it that often because I don't want to make a second lineup. I want to just make my cash lineup. That's what I'm good at. But in those small fields, essentially your cash lineup is close to what would be optimal in that type of contest. But I saw it was overlaying, in the last 5 minutes, it was 78 of 100 or something like that. And I'm like, I could play this for free. I mean, even if it fills at 94, that's no rake. Anything before 94 is overlay. So I put in my lineup into that, the same lineup that I had in cash, and then I just made it a 2v2. I'm just okay, well, instead of this, I'm just going to over-correlate, just stack this team and just whatever, and took the shot for 333, came in first for 10,000. Right? But I went in going this 30, that I'm only playing about $800 in cash. Like, the reason why I don't play it that often is that it's very hard to get good cash action in the soccer lobby. I mean, you could get action, but I'm playing against Saramek. I'm playing against Red. I'm playing against, I have to unblock PSU or stuff like that. And, like, what's the point of that? So maybe I could get into all the double ups, get into all the stuff, and maybe like $800 to $1,000. So to play a $333 contest represents like a third of what I'm allocating. And that goes against that goes against kind of my risk averse, my nitty type of risk profile when I play DFS. But if it overlays, then okay, I'll take a shot. Just like we preach on this show that bankroll management had a risk, a position sizing or whatever, if you want to use it for stock market terms, like, is important because, like, even if you have an edge, the volatility is so high that you're putting yourself at risk of, like, you can't make all the money without having money. You need money to make money. So when you're investing, quote unquote, in these digital collectibles on a platform that has no distinct withdrawal policy, and it's artificially scarce supply because they control the supply, you don't. It could be oversaturated, it could be undersaturated. This could be the thing. It could not be the thing. You say, let me take $1,000 and throw it on, and you look on the platform and go, if I could buy a pack for $9 and sell the cards for $60, like, why not just take a 5x right there? Because why not? I mean, I don't blame anyone. That's why, like, it's not that I don't get digital collectibles. I get it. It's just a matter of, like, put yourself in my shoes of how I play DFS, and you understand where my perspective comes from, that like, there's a reason why I don't play. There are some small sites. I looked into this. We'll tie this all together. We never prep for these shows, so it goes wherever it goes. I looked into the site No House Advantage. You probably heard of it. They've sponsored.
I don't even know if I have heard of it.
Oh, you haven't even heard of it. No House Advantage. Okay, it's a bad name, but it's the name for a reason, because it's prop betting. It's essentially peer-to-peer. It's essentially where I think the market's going to go, where once DFS kind of flatlines a bit, I want to find another peer-to-peer sports analytics type of game. Yeah. And to me, it's not sports betting, because they'll limit you if you do too well. So, like, I'm not going to spend all that time to do that. But I could beat other people at a game of picking 8 prop bets, assigning, and like on No House Advantage, you could, like, assign how many points per each, like, prop out of your little portfolio, and then you're just competing against other people's portfolios for the day. So to me, that's the format that, like, I think is the future. The problem is that if you go to No House Advantage, they're not in New York, they're not in Virginia, like, they're not in Massachusetts. These are the states that have, like, those regulatory fees. Right? And once I see that you're not willing to pay the regulatory fees, I'm sorry. It appeals to me. I want to play these types of games. I want to be a first mover into these types of markets that other people aren't in, and lead them for the next, for 5 years from now. But how do I justify taking my money and then my time? Because I have to put in enough money that it's worth my time to even do, when you can't pay the $50,000 regulatory fee in Virginia even to operate. Like, I come from the online poker background. Like, I lived through Black Friday. Of course, I only had like $1,400 on full tilt at the time, so it wasn't like that big of a deal because I played mostly live. But, like, that's, to me, that's the red flag. Stop. Like, yes, I guess, half the time it's fine, half the time it goes out. Who knows what happens? But I'm not at the point, like, with my risk profile. Like, I'm sorry, I can't. You've sent out the signal that my money is not safe. my cash money, my cash is not safe. So how do I do that? So that's why I look at the Top Shot marketplace and go, I would do the same thing. I would say, I don't care if I believe in digital collectibles at all. All I know is that I could buy something for $9 and turn it into 60 with no effort, pretty much. Like, I'd be doing this, and I'm perfectly fine with people saying that that's why they're doing it. And that I get that. And then if you want to risk the fact that who knows if you could withdraw, that's up to your. Then fine. That's your risk tolerance. I'm going to put in $1,000, and if I never get it back, fine. I'm speculating. So to me, it's not a matter. My argument is more due to the fact of the transparency, of just I'm perfectly fine with people being assholes, right? People being greedy. I'm cynical on human beings in general, but I could respect someone that's like, yeah, I'm an asshole, I'm a greedy asshole, and I'm doing it, and I don't care who I fuck. Like, okay, I respect that. Like, you're both. I'm gonna flip these things, and if someone's left holding the bag with a $1,600 gift that's ends up being worth $5, I'm fine with that as long as I get mine. It sounds like bad of me to say, but I respect that because at least you're upfront about it. You're not trying to say something that you aren't. So Eric, if you're putting $1,000 in and like, if I could turn this into $3,000 with little effort and then hopefully get my money out, like that's fine. But then don't give me the whole I believe in digital collectible bullshit, because then you'd be buying and holding.
Yeah, so I do think it's a little bit of a combination, because I do have interest. So I don't know. This is also new, and it's new to me. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, but I do like there's enough potential and upside in this thing working, right? Like Bales talked about it. He said it way better than I'll ever be able to say it. But it's like, it's not the same. Some people use this comparison, and he kind of did. It's not apples to apples with like Bitcoin, right? But I still will never claim to be a Bitcoin or crypto expert. And when it first got brought up, I thought it was stupid too. I think everybody did. And that's how I felt about this thing. But I'm more open to, dabbling in some of these things that I don't, necessarily think are like I don't fully understand. But clearly there's other people who believe in this thing, and there's enough upside in it ending up being a winner and being a thing that I'm not 100% like flipping, trying to turn, like you said, turn $1,000 into a few $1,000. I am doing that, like you said, full transparency, of course. Like you get in, you see how quick and easy it is to turn a few bucks into 5x or 10x your money or whatever.
On paper, I want to highlight on paper.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And so that's the other thing. This is not investment advice. This is to what you said. You have to have a certain risk profile to dabble in these kinds of things. Just
like you have to have a risk profile in DFS. I mean,
exactly.
This is how I want to relate the things together. I don't want to turn this into a Top Shot, another Top Shot episode. But since you weren't on and Davis was, and we talked a lot about that, I wanted to make sure that people are like, okay, you're interested in this thing. You're not tweeting about it a million times. Of course, I'm making jokes about it being, like people are buying dinosaur bones now, and like I'm like whatever. But I mean, but at least I'm consistent with like we see what's going on with the stock market this week with GameStop and Reddit and everything like that. And I'm sitting here with my money market account and ETFs and like, to me, I view it as my risk profile is lower, that there's no point. I just look at it from a logical perspective. Like to me, I feel sane. I feel like someone that's never going to be a multimillionaire. Like, and my goal has never been to be a multimillionaire. If it happens, great, it happens. Okay. But my thing is that I look at my DK balance right now. So like I'm going to open up my DK app, and I currently have in there about $23,000 in my DK account. Now, if I'm playing $1,500 tonight, like what is the other money doing? Like just sitting there. It's actually sitting in an account that DraftKings has that they're collecting interest on.
Exactly.
Right? So now I look at that and I go, well, I have $200,000. Like, there's no point. I'm not playing that money daily on the sites. So why should I have them on the sites? Not because I don't trust the sites. They're regulated now. I think my money's safe on there. It's not one of those poker situations or offshore books or anything. I have no problem. It's just that my money's not getting me anything. I'm not churning an ROI of anything other than the percent that I'm playing. So where can I park this money that's liquid that I could, if I need to put another $5,000 on my account, I could do it easily. I don't have to, sell a car or something, that type of asset. So like I looked into, I'm like, okay, if I $100,000 in a money market account like 3 years ago, the interest rate was like 1.85%. So I'm like, I do the calculation in my head. I go $100,000, right, times 0.0185, and that comes out to $1,850. And I go, $1,850, that's my cell phone bill for the year, right? Like, that's how I view it, of like, I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is just put my money, just click a button and move my money into this account, and my cell phone bill is paid for the year. Like, and with no work, with no labor involved. Mm-hmm. So like, that's how I view like these investments of like, well, if I could put some of this money into an ETF that over the course of a year averages about 3.5%, well, that's my car payment for the year. I mean, like there's a difference in risk profiles of what you're doing and what I'm doing. What you're doing, you're saying I'm going to play, and it's very similar to our DFS playing styles, right?
I
mean, like you play these live final qualifiers, and I don't, and it's like you have a higher percent chance of going broke than me, but you also have a higher percent chance of 5 years from now through DFS having $3 million, right? I'm unlikely to get $3 million the way that I play. But I maximize my chance of pretty much not going broke. Like, I don't have to necessarily worry about being homeless, right? I don't have to worry about, how am I gonna pay my bills? And I'm maximizing for that. And my upside is, growing this. That can I have $1 million 10 or 15 years from now? And without having to have a real job. And I go, that sounds pretty fucking good to me. So, right? So my investments are much more, a Roth IRA. It's like, okay, this is tax-free and whatever. You put $4,500 in a year and you push it down the line until you're 60 whatever years old. But most people, how come psychologically? Like, you meet two different types of people, it seems like, in the DFS space. Because I've gotten emails, and I've gotten people that, like, they want to play DFS seriously, and they look at my goal and go, I want that, right? Someone that has a decent job, but just hates their fucking job. And they're like, they're decent at DFS, and maybe they do some stock trading, maybe they do some stuff on the side, and they're like, I'd like to just be able to just, like, quit this job and just take my money and make it work for me type of thing. And DFS is a market just like anything else. And they look at my goal and go, I want that. Yet there are plenty of people that look at my goal and go, what a fucking nit you are. Like, they're like, what? Like, why aren't you trying to strike gold? Why aren't you trying to, get oil? Why aren't you making 10 different bets knowing that 9 of them are going to fail? And similar to what you're doing, maybe to not that extent. I mean, you still play responsibly within your means. How come psychologically inside like the DFS community, it almost seems like your style of your risk profile is championed, while my risk profile is kind of made fun of?
Yeah, that is weird. I never really thought about it that way, and I don't think that was always even the case. I mean, I haven't even always been like that. So like that's the
you don't think it's always been the case? These sites had commercials with people with big checks. You could play $10 and win $1 million. I mean, like the sites perpetuated it.
In terms of, well, that's just because that sells. It's like $1 million.
Well, that's the question that I'm at. Hence, why is your more towards your level? I'm gonna try to make $1 million. I'm gonna type of thing, play live finals, those types of things. Why is that championed? Because it sells. But why is that? Is it similar to like the lottery? Is it similar to like it's makes it feel like it's easier than it is, and that the reward is 20x more than it should be, rather than like when people are like, well, why are you going to invest in ETFs? They're like, it's like a 3.2% return and whatever. It's like, yeah, and what's wrong with that? And they go, well, that's not sexy. You're not going to make a lot of money doing that. Why do I need to make a lot of money? I have money. I can make, if you tell some, look at the way the world is going now with the United States. We have people need stimulus checks, unemployment rates high. If I told someone, it's like, if I could tell you a way that you could pay your rent for the next 6 months without doing nothing, like why isn't that championed? And you're, I'm going to play the $1,500 qualifiers and try to get my $2.5 million check and the fantasy football world championship. Why is that looked at as, well, I want to be like Eric. I don't want to be like fucking Nitty Jordan.
It's because we're gonna get into some serious human psychology about how fucked up everybody is. But it's two things, I think. One is a lot of people don't have money, right? Like you're like, oh, I can just take this amount of money, this comfortable amount of money that I have, comfortable or whatever, whatever verbiage you want to use, and I can just make a living off of that. A lot of people can't do that, I don't think. And then the human element of this, what's his name? Like Dan Blazarian, right? And Vegas Dave and all these guys that, these post Instagram shit on cars, with a lot of cash and people have exploited this like flaw in humans that is just wild. And that's what has happened in DFS too. I think it went nuts, like you said, with like the advertising craze and all that kind of stuff. With every commercial break on every channel was DraftKings win $1 million, whatever. But I think like within our little bubble, it wasn't necessarily quite always that way. It's always like kind of partially been that way, right? That's like the DFS pipe dream. But it used to be, we talk about this sometimes, like I'll talk about it with Jamino or whatever. It used to be even like the most high profile touts or whatever would be like, okay, remember, you got to play 80% cash and 20% GPPs. You got to play 50-50s. You got to play head to heads, all that. Like, go find it. Go try and find cash game like articles and content. Like it kind of exists, but like people don't give a shit about that anymore. How do I take first? How do I get to post a screenshot on Twitter, right? How do I get 6 figures or whatever? Like people are winning like 5 figures, and like it does like that's not enough. Like what do you won 20 grand last night, and people are like, oh well so and so won 250, right? Because these contests are just so absurd.
Right. When I posted I made that joke about Top Shots when I posted the soccer thing, and I took $333. And I made 10,000, and I know, and I'm posting this going, in the back of my head, I'm going, is this big enough for me to even post? Like you, right? Why am I thinking that? I'm making a joke out of it. I'm showing, yeah, I got soccer shots, I got chops in soccer, which I normally do, and I never mind screenshots of people that are like, I have no problem whatsoever of some dude that plays recreationally that played $17 and turned it into $144. I'm like, good for you. No, I applaud you. I mean, come on. It's like it's all in a relation. And then people are like, well, unless you're posting 6-figure screenshots, then you're an asshole. And it's like, but like that's the thing that I don't that's the thing that I don't get of it. It's that psychological factor of why are nits looked down upon when in fact, like, that's the response, they're the responsible people. right?
It's funny. It's funny. This all kind of coming full circle, and how this shit always comes full circle, even though we don't plan anything out. But last night, I posted. I had the almost this exact same thought that you did, because I had a really successful start to NBA, and it's been really shitty lately. And I think it's just been a little bit of variance. And last night, I'm pretty sure I had the most win equity that I've had in a little while. I think I probably, was the favorite in multiple contests on FanDuel, and it just didn't quite get there.
Right, Lonzo Ball got hurt, and Michael Bridges didn't reach his median. I saw that lineup that you posted, and for a small field GPP on FanDuel, I thought that was a very leveraged way to go. You still played a bunch of the chalk, and you got unlucky there. But I'm assuming you're gonna say, like you tweeted, you had to make a disclaimer in the tweet of well, everyone posts screenshots when they win at God knows how much money, but they don't post I think I played well. I didn't win a lot of money, and I'd like to show people that and what's wrong with it.
Yeah. And it wasn't even I don't really post that many screenshots and all that, just because I don't really care. It's just not my thing. I talked to you about it, or if you want to hear the teams that I played or see, you can go look them up, or I talk to you about it, or I'm in Slack or Discord or whatever. So I just use Twitter to fuck around mostly, but it was this exact same conversation that we're having. At a certain point, you're just Jesus Christ, everybody feels the need to post, feels that they have to win, X amount of dollars to post something on Twitter. And it's we are ruining this ecosystem that we live in here, and that, you and I make money from, not just with our play, but with our careers. And it's not long-term sustainable to have this. I mean, maybe it is, maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think we need to be breeding a better ecosystem of, it's not even just being a nit. I'm like you said, we have very different risk profiles. We play very different styles in DFS. But why is it, sometimes people post screenshots of winning teams that were bad tournament teams, right? It's just, it doesn't need to always be about that, oh, I won 6 figures or 7 figures or whatever. I think we need to be, just breeding a little bit better ecosystem. So I posted literally the opposite of what other people would do. And yeah, it's sad. You have to put a disclaimer, but I was just look, I'm doing this, professionally, kind of, I guess. I have a job, so that's my profession. But look, I've been losing for multiple weeks now. I've been losing, and here I think I made a good team, and I want to share it. Look, sometimes even I am losing, and here's a team that, look, I could have won all the money tonight, and everyone experiences that, right? Everybody, you do, the casual player does, even the guy, like you said, the guy playing $17, every once in a while he probably makes a team that win equity was super high, and it just doesn't get there. That happens all the time to everybody, but nobody ever you're just left to sit and tilt by yourself, right? Or tilt in Slack, or tilt with DMs with your buddies or whatever, just oh, that fucking 2v2, right? Or, oh, if so and so didn't get hurt, oh, I would have won all the money. And you're just left to tilt it, and it's you're not allowed to talk about that also on Twitter, right? You're never allowed to be well, probably should have won 200 grand tonight, but got fucked out of it. Everybody's oh, quit bitching. Quit whining about it.
Right. Keep calm and blame variance, right? Why are you complaining about this shit?
Yeah. But it's we're like I said, just breeding this ecosystem that's super unhealthy. We can't ever again, going back to the thing we talk about all the time, we can't ever be a real human. It's look, I think I played well tonight. You might have played well tonight and lost too. So we're in the same boat. There's other, you made a good team. You could have won, almost won, whatever. But you didn't. You're tilting. We're in the same boat. We're here together. You don't have to be, it isn't all just fucking screenshots of $100,000 wins and all that kind of stuff. Or like you said, or if you won 10 grand, or if you won $500 and you're happy about it and you're proud about it, share it. You should be proud. It's not that easy to win this game. We're playing a game against other really talented people. and it's hard, and you're going to lose a lot. So like, yeah, be happy and enjoy it when you win. And I think kind of what you described in a different way than just like the kind of more nitty nature versus the more very open to risk nature. I think it's maybe it's just because of like 2020 was such a shit show, and now 2021 is starting off like such a shit show that like everybody is having a bleak outlook on everything, and it's really changed kind of the attitude towards all of this.
I think it's gone on for the entire time. For the entire time I played DFS, it's been this way.
You think so?
Yes.
Even from like the beginning?
Yes. Well, I only started October 2015, but ever since that, yes. I think it's a byproduct of social media. We know that in the DFS community, we know most of each other from what we post publicly on social media, or at least publicly inside of Discords and Slacks, which still have hundreds, if not thousands, of members. So it's still somewhat of a public forum that like, it's very easy when there's a community of tens of thousands of people. Someone's one of the 100,000 won the tournament tonight, right? Yeah. Someone did, right? Someone did well, and we're gonna see it, right? So then the next day, well, it's someone also. So it's like it's that Instagram ramification of like all you're seeing is this guy winning and that person winning and this woman winning and that type of thing. And because no one's posting, because they're afraid of getting shamed or something of like, oh, I 2x. I finally stopped my downswing. It was a good psychological win. No one posts that because it's perceived as weakness. But to me, shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't that be perceived as strength? Shouldn't it be perceived as it's a nice, like, churning out that if you get to the end of this is the reason why I'm playing these small field GPPs, right? Mm-hmm. I want to make the same amount of money that I made the past 4 years, right? Most years, maybe not last year. Mm-hmm. $50,000 to $75,000 on average. Can I get there without having to be like lose, big win, lose? Can I do it with an $8,000 win here, a $10,000 win there, a $15,000 win here, a $4,000, and do it that way, and then cash games, and then get 5% return there, maybe churn out 15 to 20,000 just in cash games, and then at the end of the year, I'm sitting there with $60,000, and then I look at the course of the whole year and go, I didn't have like any big downswings. I wasn't stressed out because I was playing 100 lineups and then having to juggle late swap and do all of that and then still losing for 2 months in a row before I came in second, $30,000. Like the stress behind all of that. And then I still at the end of the year end up with the same amount of money in a less risky profile to do so. Like what? It's to my brain. To me, that should be championed. Like to me, that's the thing that should be promoted, and not the every once in a while I'm going to show that I won $100,000 and not show the $85,000 I lost in the process, and then no one has any reality of what this is. But 95, just like what you said with the flashy cars and the con men with the sports betting picks, it's like, well, people are gullible and they just this is what sports betting is, and he's successful. I'm going to buy his picks until they realize that's not the way it works. And anyone that plays DFS seriously knows that that's not the way it works. Yet, whenever I do anything nitty, I get the nit tweets, right? I get when I'm talking about switching out $5 head-to-heads, so I'm not blocking people, so I could save GPP lineups that have Gabe Vincent's 2.5 points in them because he didn't play for the Heat or something, and if I could scrape 5% of them back to the cash line, like that's an extra on my volume. That's maybe an extra what, $500 or $600 maybe more, $1,000 over the course of a year that takes me about 5 minutes a night to do, what does $1,000 buy me? That's a car. That's a mortgage payment. I mean, like, so what? Why is that looked at as like, I can't believe you're such a nit that you spend 5 minutes, saving bad lineups. Just fuck it. You're playing for first or nothing at all. It's like, well, if I could spend 5 minutes, it's one of those things where in poker, in these types of activities, you're supposed to not look at the money from a utility perspective, right? Because then you put too much psychological attachment to it. Oh my God, I lost $3,000. That's like 3 mortgage payments. I can't believe I lost. Like, you have to get outside of that because you'll never be able to play well, but with scared money. I mean, that's what it's called. So I'm past that. I get that. But it seems like it's weird. Most people, their weakness is that they view the money from a utilitarian standpoint when they lose, but not when they win, right? People view it as, I can't believe I lost a mortgage payment, but if you won $1,000, you'd be like, I have $1,000 to just risk on anything I want. Like, all of a sudden now it's like play money. And to me, I view it the other way around, that I could lose $3,000 and I don't view it as anything. It's just, okay, my portfolio went down. But then when I win $3,000, I think of, wow, I could prepay 3 months worth of mortgage. I view it that as the utility, because that's the goal. But it's all built around, that's the goal that I've put on it, that this $3,000 that I've won is not funny money. It's either going to go into my bankroll, and then obviously I'm going to increase my percentage, so it's going to periodically go up over time. So it's money for me to make money, or it's something for me to utilize, but not utilize of, I won 10 grand of buying a new car type of thing. Like, I don't do that. To me, 10, my wife gets to spend, a little, the first rule of DFS. Whenever you win big, you bribe your significant other. Right, so they'll constantly let you do. So she bought some $40 some headphone thing for a pillow, something, whatever she bought. I don't know. I just, whenever I would buy whatever, put it on Amazon. It goes on my card. Whatever the hell happens. But to me, the way that my brain works, I find it funny because I don't view it the other way. And you get what I'm saying, even though it seems like you lean more towards the side. You're not full on to that side. So when we say that, like, I'm a nit and you're like Evel Knievel, you're not, right? You're probably on the safer side of most players that play at your stakes, right? So we're not. It's not. You're not off the reservation, but it still comes down to, like, why is what I do seen almost negatively and yours positively, when in actuality, if you're a serious DFS player, it should be the opposite.
Yeah, and it is funny. I have kind of moved a little bit more towards, I think it's actually really funny now that I kind of think about it, that throughout the course that we've been recording this, right, you've gone from like the kind of crazy high leverage, large field MME guy coming down into the smaller field contests. I was like you said, it's an exaggeration for effect, right? That's what we do. You have to a lot of times exaggerate for a little bit effect. The high stakes, small field, crazy high leverage for those contests, and playing almost only GPPs, and playing for first and playing live final qualifiers, and like I'm still doing a lot of that. But I have found during this NBA season specifically that I have been able to do a little bit more of what you're outlining, lower my risk by playing on FanDuel, playing more heavily on FanDuel, and also playing cash games on FanDuel. When I get we talked about this a few episodes ago. The only time that I don't play cash on FanDuel is when I get lazy, like I'm busy during the day and I'm lazy and I don't want to click all the goddamn buttons that you have to click in order to get into the cash games that you need to. But when I'm really trying to play, like yesterday, I will play the contests. I will play more of my action, like way more of my action on FanDuel, and I will play cash games on FanDuel because I've been able to find that there's a good balance there between the way I want to approach, like you said, my risk profile, which I am on the riskier side, the Evel Knievel side, as opposed to you, but I'm also still able to balance that a little bit with some of the factors that you talked about, right? Just the general sanity level of like, I'm not getting zero back every single night. Like even if you lose in cash games, or even if you lose in some of these contests, you're not always getting zero back, which like has an interesting psychological effect. But I think that there's a balance there, and there's a balance there for everybody, and it's different for me than it is for you. But that's kind of why, like, all this kind of coming full circle. Like that's kind of part of why like I tweeted what I tweeted last night, and why I'm playing slightly differently than maybe I would have. I'm playing differently than I played in NFL season, and I'm definitely playing differently than I did like last NBA season. And you talked about soccer. That's kind of how I approach college basketball. I haven't been playing that quite as much because NBA has been taking up so much time, but that's how I approach college basketball too. The contests are very, very similar. Play a lot more, head-to-heads and 50-50s and all that kind of stuff, because the tournaments just don't really exist. But I enjoy that sport, and I think I have like long-term plus, high expected value long term in some of that stuff outside of like playing Turtle and playing Socks, and some of these guys that are the like superstar niche players is not necessarily plus EV. But in general, just found balancing all of these different things has been beneficial to, you said, my swings. It's been beneficial to your psychology, and I do think that needs to be outlined. Like you said, I approach it a little bit differently than you do, but the general concept is the exact same, right?
You're more willing, in general, to take more shots.
Correct.
Right. Essentially, that's but you're coming a little bit closer to me, and it could switch in from sport to sport, from quarter to quarter, from year to year. Like, yes, I was playing in my GPP play was supplemented by my cash play, but I was playing the large field GPPs, knowing, because that's where most of the dead money is. But the swings are just ginormous. And then my swings aren't even that bad compared to a lot of people's swings. So, like, my risk profile is even lower than the swings that I was going through. And is there a way for me to maximize my to minimize my risk and maximize my reward to the same point, just by playing different contests, just by playing different formats, by not looking at 100K to first and going, I could build 100 lineups, and going, what's wrong with 4K to first in a $100 contest? Right? What's wrong with that? If I could win that several times a year, and that will eat that. By the time I get to the end of the year, this arbitrary period that doesn't matter, that I have the same amount of money. Now, can I do it? I'm not sure, because I didn't focus on it. So that's why I can't just say it's January 28th and go, it's working out, I'm doing it forever, or it's not working out and I'm turning it around. I have no idea. But the purpose of me doing so is to make a normal amount of money. To me, it drives me nuts, Eric. If your goal isn't to make $1 million this year, then you shouldn't be playing. I mean, I still don't get it. Is it a macho thing? Is it a keeping up appearances thing? Because you don't come across that way, and a lot of serious DFS players don't either. Like it's not. This isn't like all. But for the people that are listening or watching the podcast, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. A lot of times all they're seeing is the macho stuff, and not seeing the more responsible stuff that goes on, and without having a baseline, Just that's why the perception of, oh, you need 150 lineups in order to win these contests. Like all these things, you know, that, awesome. Oh, he posts a screenshot of his balance and it's $42 million. And like the first half a second, I'm like, that's obviously Photoshopped. Right? And people think that he has $42 million in his account. Not because he may have $42 million, but he definitely doesn't have it all in a DraftKings account. You'd be an idiot to do that. Right? And he's smart enough to, like, why are we going to give him, you're going to give DraftKings interest for no fucking reason. So, but the fact that people believe that type of stuff, like, what, I'm still harping on this. This is the theme of this episode. Why isn't the NIT championed?
I keep trying to come up with a good answer, and I don't really have one other than, yeah, that's kind of what we've devolved to across the, like, not just DFS, right? But it's like this space is so ripe for the Vegas Dave type stuff. And then, like you said, so you have all these tout sites, right? Like, I'm not even taking into account like ones I haven't heard of that probably are they could be great. I don't know. But like you take all the kind of major ones, you know, and new ones pop up every year and some die and all that kind of stuff. But that's like such a, like the subscribers and the players, you know, and the people that work there make up such a large portion of the, you know, people that are in all these contests that, like you said, it's inevitable that just about every night someone that wins big is on, you know, is one of these people, right? They have a Roto Grinders badge, or they have a Awesemo badge, or they have whatever, right? And so then it just snowballs that every single night somebody from one of these places wins and it gets promoted. And so then the other site, you know, the next site, when they win, they have to promote it. And it just created this snowball effect where that's the only thing that people are ever seeing. And talking about the stuff, like, honestly, that we talk about, the real, like, I prefer to, like, it's the reality of DFS. Like, all the stuff that you see on social media and all that kind of stuff, it's all fine. But like the reality is like what we talk about on here, like managing your risk. What are your actual goals? How much can you really win? What does winning even look like? Is it, like you said, and it's different for everybody. Is it like a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, or is it this and then this and then this? That, like, figuring all that out is not sexy to talk about, and that's just like what it is. Like in like everything, it's like it's the Instagramification.
Right. I mean, we see, but you even see it in the sports betting space. Like, it's, if you're not putting up if you're not $100 eight team parlay, like, why that? When I see that, I'm like, well, these, like, you're not a responsible bet. Like, do you understand how much edge, how much hold this fucking bet has? You can't be a profitable bettor with these bets. Like, you can't, it's like, it's mathematically impossible, unless you're the Oracle or something, like, to be profitable with this stuff. But that's not the reality. And it's boring to people to go, well, I'm going to, there's a line that's, you know, minus 123 that should be minus 112. And I'm going to bet the other side and take 3 cents on the dollar on my bet. And I'll just find a couple of those per day and hope I don't get limited. Right? And like the props that are off and oh, but what happened? But no, I want to take $10 and turn it into 17,000. It's like, well, the fucking hold on that is like fucking 40%. Like, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but and if you want to play that way for recreation, go for it. I'm not nothing against it, right? If you want to go on DraftKings Sportsbook, on a legal sportsbook in the United States, and go and have fun and whatever, and just $10 here, live bet or whatever, go, good luck to that. But I mean, I take a look at some of these lines and I go, how the fuck can you ever be profitable? Like, I can look offshore and see lines that are 10 cents better. Like, no serious bettor would be doing this. And any serious, they're getting the dumb money type of, which is fine. But you don't see the grinding out a 2% ROI like on Twitter. You don't see, like, no one markets that, right? It's not none of the, even though that's the reality, no one markets the reality. No one talks about the reality enough. Amongst sharper players, they do, right? The conversation that me and you are having, Eric, right now, and your dog, sharp players have with each other. Not publicly, but with each other. How are you managing this? How you, like, serious players do talk about this stuff, right? I get DMs from players that I respect more than that. I go, I don't know why you're talking to me. They'll ask me questions of like, well, are you getting your data over here? Like, what do you think of, like, so I'll mention some sites' projections or some sites' thing. It's like, how are they doing this? How are they doing, like, they're trying to compare it to their own model or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or they're like, you know, I'm getting, like, because since I'm tracking my cash games in NBA on the publicly on the spreadsheet, like, some people have reached out, good players have reached out to me and said, I have lineups very similar to yours, and, like, how you like, they'll say you only lost 40% tonight. Like, I lost like 90%. Like, did you have some high stakes head? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't get, like, are you just better at contest selection than me? Like, they're trying to get better. But who talks about that? I mean, who talks about, like, I lost 90%, but I was stupid because I should have only lost 40% because I entered too many 11-man double ups with BK Reader and Mock Lovin. Like, I came in 6th out of 11th. But if I just entered a bunch of the 23-mans, I would have came in 10, right? With those guys and still cashed. And maybe I don't take that into account enough. And they're reaching out and they're saying, what are you doing with contest selection that these are on losing nights, right? How did you only lose this while I lost way more? And figuring out, like, how to grind out an extra 1%, 2%. You don't have there's no shows about that. I mean, no one talks about that. But is it the reason that it's not sexy, that it doesn't sell, or that there's too much perception that if you're playing DFS, you're playing it as a speculative investment, similar to your Top Shots, right? If you were going to if someone had $100 and they're like, I'm going to invest in Top Shots, I'm going to go in with my $100 and try to turn my 100 into $140 in a week and then withdraw and literally never buy any ever again. Take your $40 and there you go. You got a 40% return in a week. Like, you'd take that in any investment you could possibly think of, right? Right?
Yep.
Right? Put in $1,000, get $400 just flipping stuff, and then you're done, literally. And then you're looked at as like, well, you know, what a pussy, right? Right? Why didn't you hold? Yep. Why didn't you take the extra 400 and reinvest it into more of these things? Like, well, what happens if your risk profile isn't to the extent where you want to, you know, YOLO this? And if you see this in venture capital, where the business has a great business model, they're making money, they have positive cash flow, and they're profitable, but they're never gonna be a 5x investment. So, like, they don't get any money. They like if I can't invest $10 million and turn it into $50 million within 2 years, I'm not interested in turning my $10 million into $15 million in 2 years, right? Because obviously there's an opportunity cost. They're looking for, you know, unicorns that can do that, and they're betting on a lot of they're betting on dinosaur bones, you know, like doing that type of shit. Because they're hoping that one goes for 50x that covers. It's very similar to MME and DFS, right? I'm playing 150 lineups for the one lineup that gives me a 1500x return. But that style, that mentality is championed. Is like, this is what you should be doing. Look at this guy. Look at that guy. Look at this. You get survivorship bias. So it's like, look at these 3 guys that did that. That they don't show you the 100 people that failed, right? Just here's the 3 people. So what could we do if possible, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we should be viewing DFS as a get rich quick, get in, get out, and move on to something else type of thing. That my long-term perspective on DFS is too bullish. That because this thing could crash at any time, right? That DFS, sports betting takes over. DraftKings 2 years from now decides to go, we're just going to shut down our DFS platform completely, right? It's just like, nope, we're just all sportsbook and we're done. And then I'm going to be sitting here going, well, where's my 3%, 5% return anymore? And like, now I got to find something else. So that's why some people I talk to that view it as like, I'm risking 15% of my 20% of my bankroll a night because I'm good and I want to get as much money out of this before this whole fucking bubble collapses, right? That the industry bubble. And I'm viewing it as, I think this is going to be around for quite a while. And I believe that when this dips, that it's not going to be sports betting that I get into. It's going to be these peer-to-peer betting games that there's going to be innovation where people that want to play against other people about stuff. And then they're going to make these, stake draft betting game. Who knows what the format's going to be? It could be one like the National Sports Betting Championship like DraftKings did. Mm-hmm. You get $10,000 and then you have to turn it into X amount. Whoever turns it into the most by the end of the night type of thing. Where it's not like you have to turn it. It's just you're competing against other people. And that's where game theory comes in. So I figure that if I'm applying game theory to DFS and making money, I'm going to ride I'm going to grind that until there's something else that I could then grind also. And then I get into those games and then people will make like, oh, how come you're not playing like the super contest, right? You have to make 8 bets and then you have to go like fucking perfect. And if you're perfect, you get $500,000. And I'm like, dude, I'm playing against schmucks that are betting on their favorite, that they're from Dallas, so they bet on the Cowboys with their 8-point fucking pick. And I'm just looking at my model and building the best fucking prop portfolios. And can I get a better return than I could get with an index fund in the stock market? And people are like, well, you're talking about fucking index funds in the goddamn stock market? Like, what are you, a nit? What are you, what fucking pussy? Like, is it a macho thing?
I don't know. It's a really interesting thing to think about, and I haven't it's one of those where like I've known that like it exists, right? Like this is not the first time you or I have realized this or thought about this, but I never really like deeply thought about like why does it exist to the extent that it exists, and is it really like how I'm fairly certain it's unhealthy, but like how unhealthy is it?
But the question I ponder, I think the key question, I know I'm trying to gain sympathy of like, come on, I'm a nit, feel bad because people make fun of me or something. But is it the thing where I'm too risky? The made fun comes from the fact, like I see guys, like I see Davis, he's like, well, I'm going to invest in this thing, I'm going to take a shot on this thing. And he's still doing it smartly and being diversified, same way you'd be diversified playing DFS, and saying, like, what the biggest thing that I've said over the course of my 5 years of play is that it's kind of a little bit of an imposter syndrome. How good am I? I know I'm better than average. I know I'm good. I know I'm good enough to be profitable. In what I've been doing, I'm profitable. But maybe I'm really good. And maybe if instead of playing the $100 contest, I was playing your contests, the $1,500 contests, maybe if I was playing 150 max and not 50 into the 50 max, maybe if I took on more risk, I'd be sitting here with $2.5 million. And I'm the idiot for being too nitty and not taking it. Like I'm sacrificing way too much EV to minimize risk, and that's why I'm being made fun of. I don't think that's I really don't think that's the reason, but that in the back of my head, I'm like imagine if I was much more tolerant of risk, it's quite possible that I've left $1 million on the table. And then I feel like, yes, you should make fun of me.
Yeah. I think it's can kind of be that and in between. I don't think it is. So let's take a quick step back. This is a different conversation than just all these sites are posting or people are posting screenshots and that's the marketing. I think that's a different conversation that sometimes gets muddied up in this, comparing it to, like risk aversion and how you should be kind of deploying your assets within this DFS ecosystem. I think, of course, like anything, it's different for every single person, right? The thing I say on every fucking episode is like, we're all humans, but that means we're all very unique in the way that we handle different things, that we think about different things. We have different risk profiles. We have different psychological impacts. These things are just different for everybody. But I think, if we're just, everything being equal, it's like the truly optimal, healthiest way to do it is some sort of hybrid between kind of all of this. If you're really trying to balance every one of these things that has an impact on you, whether, managing your risk profile, like I would assume that anyone that is playing this, maybe this is a wrong assumption, is chasing a little bit of upside, right? You're definitely playing, if you're playing the way that you're playing, to get a certain returns, because you're fairly certain that you'll be able to get those returns over a long period of time. But there is also still that aspect of a ceiling, right? Because you are still playing tournaments. You may change that ceiling depending on the contest you enter, but there's an aspect of a ceiling, right?
Well, it's a day-to-day. I think the difference, what you're saying is dated. Like, there's a difference. Like, when I say that I'm a nit, it's not that I'm a nit in my play style on a slate, right? Like I said, I don't care about minimum cashing. I'm playing lineups that could win first place, and I have no problem if I put in X amount of dollars and it turns to zero.
Yep.
But I'm playing every day, so like my contest selection is the nit part of it. Not the lineup construction. Like, that's to separate that. I think people may get confused. They're like, well, you don't play conservatively. You play these crazy lineups, and like, yeah, but I'm playing 1% of my bankrolls. There are some people that play 5 to 10% of their bankroll. I'm playing 1% of my bankroll. I'm playing 2% in cash games, and people are like, why don't you play 5 to 10%? Like your risk of ruin, yeah, it's going to go up a little, but not as much as you think it is. And I'm just like, I'm holding on to the the edge of the helicopter going, I ain't jumping off. Like, I don't care. Yeah, but we're only 6 feet off the ground. Like, I don't care. I could get hurt. I don't know. I could sprain an ankle like that. So like, there is a difference between if you're, I mean, truthfully, the worst thing to be is high risk in your contest and bankroll management, and then low risk in your lineup construction. Actually, that is the worst combination, because essentially what you're doing is, I'm going to, like, let's say you only have a $5,000 bankroll. And when we say bankroll, that means, like, once it's gone, you don't play DFS anymore. Like, this is whatever. Or let's say you have a $50,000 bankroll, so you could play, like, seriously or whatever. Someone had a big score, they quit their job, they think they could do this full time, and then they have $50,000. They're like, well, I'm playing $10,000 a slate, and I'm building a cash lineup into large field GPPs. Like, it's most likely that your $50,000 in 6 months will be zero, right? Essentially,
probably very fast. Actually.
Very fast, right? Because you're not going to have first place equity in these lineups. You're going to min cash 40% of them. You're going to lose like 15% of your entries every night until you're gone, right? Yep. So essentially, you're taking on a high-risk bankroll, a high-risk profile when it comes to how do you deploy your capital, and then what you deploy it in are assets that have absolutely no upside, right? Yes. They only have slight downside. So that's the worst combination. The opposite would be the best combination, but it takes you the longest to realize, which is what I used to do, is have very risk-averse bankroll, like a $50,000 bankroll, but I'm only playing $500.
Yep.
And then I'm playing the riskiest lineups that I can turn 500 into zero like that, but I have so much of it, right? I can turn 500 into zero so many times that one of those times turns into $50,000 again. But I'm building lineups that could win $50,000 to $100,000.
Yep.
So that's, like, to me, that's the best combination, but it will have the wildest swings because, you're going to be losing most of the time in your pursuit of getting first place for $100,000. So in between, there has to be smart ways to do things even in between, where it's like price elasticity. There's some optimal point in the way that you play, in the way that I play, because everyone has different skills. Mm-hmm. So there's not like, well, what are the best contests to play? Well, whatever you're better than your opponents. So there has to be some optimal point where the amount of money that you risk versus the style of game that you play, like, becomes optimal for, by the end of X period, you have more money playing that way than you would in a different way. So that's the way that I'm explaining when people are asking me, like, you're not playing these large field GPPs anymore. They ask me, well, should I not be playing them any? Like, no, I'm not doing this so at the end of the year, I have more money than I would have if I did the large field stuff. My goal is to have the same, maybe even more, then survive the swings. Can I do that? Because if I can, to me, that's the best of both worlds. Right? To have the same, imagine you having this. If I could tell you at the end of the year, Eric, that you're going to make $150,000, is that good enough for you?
Yes.
Profit. Okay. For you. Even for you.
Yes.
Right. $150,000 is fine. Would you rather, if I told you that you're guaranteed $150,000, and then you have amnesia, so you don't know, now you don't know that you're going to get there, would you rather have it by winning, $1,000 a day? Right? You're going to win $1,000 a day it would be what, $500 a day times 365, whatever that comes out to $100,000. Would you rather that, or would you rather lose for 4 months straight and then make $75,000 in one shot, and then lose for another 6 months straight and then win $75,000, and then it ends up coming out to $150,000? Which one would you rather have?
Yeah, I think almost everyone would rather have the $1,000 a day.
But technically it's the same thing. But I mean, mathematically, it doesn't really matter. But like you said, we're all human. So from a human perspective, you psychologically losing for 4 months straight, number one, you have to be able to withstand that. You still have to be able to manage your bankroll, because some people tilt, and even the best of people, and be like, I lost 4 days in a row. Fuck it, I'm playing the 888. Right? You think you're doing it because it's overlay. You think, and then it's just like, and then you lose that, and you're like, why did I make such a stupid fucking decision?
And sometimes even worse is, then you're making you make worse lineups, which we've talked about in the past too, right? You make worse lineups because and it might even not necessarily be tilt. It could be tilt, and you're subconsciously making worse lineups because the psychological effects that the losing has had on you. But it also could be you're consciously making worse lineups because you're overreacting to the losing and tweaking, your approach. So like, I know we had an episode where we talked a lot about it after, like, Alan wrote his really good article, but like, that's a big thing, and you can't quantify that. Like, and it's different for every person. It could be meaningless for, I don't think it's meaningless for almost anybody, because everybody is a human. We're not fucking robots, but like, you can't quantify that. So like, because it could have a huge impact on me. I could be an awesome DFS player. I could be one of the best players in the world, but after 2 weeks of losing, I start making really shitty lineups, and I lose all of that edge that I actually have in my true skill. And everybody has to be able to assess all of that for themselves. So like you said, coming up with this perfect intersection, this perfect cross section between these different factors, it really is a super. I've never really I've probably thought about it, and we've even probably like discussed some of it. But the way that we're kind of discussing it right now, I think is really, really interesting because I don't even know the answer for myself. You know, I think what you're doing is the most interesting, not from like a specific how you're playing DFS and the contest and everything that you're playing, but the fact that you've kind of changed and adjusted and adapted. And I think I kind of have too. We talked about it earlier. I'm playing more on a different site.
You're playing cash games.
I'm playing cash games whenever I'm not too lazy to click the button 1,000 times. But all these kind of different interesting these different factors are really interesting to me because as we've talked about it, like, you know, you're asking some of the questions like, why is this style of play or this personality or whatever, why is that championed? And like when you don't have an answer, which I don't think anybody does really truly have an answer, but it tells you about how important this concept that we're talking about now really is, right? Because like this is like the biggest thing of DFS. Like we talk a lot on this show about, you know, how to make good plus EV lineups and all that kind of stuff. Like that's just like the fucking ante, right? If you want to be a good player, you got to figure out how to play the game, right? If you're bad at the game, none of this shit really even matters.
Right. I always said that there's no bankroll management that could save a losing player. It's just, you could make you lose the money slower, but you're not going to, you're not going to automatically be a bad player and then somehow with contest selection and bankroll management, turn that into profit. Like, no, it's the same thing as a casino. Is there a system for roulette? No, they're all negative EV bets. There's no way to manage everything that it can make it look like it over a short period that the system works. But the math, they're all negative EV bets. You can't turn them into positive bets.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you just set that aside and you just assume a certain level of competence, a certain level of skill above average, that this is where you either become like a wildly successful player or like a marginally successful player or a losing player. Because you could be like, you know, just one of the many examples, like I talked about, you know, the psychological impacts could have really, really, really negative, you know, impacts on your winning and losing. And thus you should be playing a certain type of, you know, you should be deploying your assets in a certain manner that, you know, cater to that, right? Like if the tilt really impacts your play, you need to be playing, you know, that doesn't mean you have to, I mean, maybe it means you need to stop, but it also doesn't mean you have to stop if you're able to adapt and adjust accordingly. Maybe the tilt doesn't, right? Maybe losing for 4 months straight doesn't really, you know, impact you at all. Well, then a different style of play is probably better for you. Obviously, those are the most extreme examples, and most people fall somewhere in the middle. But figuring out where on that pendulum you fit is not easy, but it's also like maybe one of the most important things. And it's certainly, like we talked about some of the shit that doesn't get talked about. I mean, that definitely doesn't get talked about, right? Like people even talk about contest selection and, well, how much of your bankroll should you play? Like, those aren't even the right questions.
It depends on you. I bring it up in the Discord when people ask me what I do, and I'm like, what does it matter what I do?
Exactly.
I play different contests than you. I do different contest selection techniques. I may be playing, and it could be on different slates. I look at certain slates and I go, I think my cash lineup is going to be a lot different than a lot of people's. So I start entering a lot more head-to-heads and triple-ups so I can benefit from that leverage. I think it's the best median lineup, but I know I'm not going to be I'm going to be against the market somehow. So I don't just want to get a 2x or a 1.8x return in the cash games for being right. I know that 60% of people will have this guy that I don't have.
Yep.
And if that guy does well, I'm going to lose in double ups no matter what. But if he doesn't do well, let me have a chance of getting 3x out of it in the process. So that's slate to slate. So asking me like, what contest do you... Sometimes I play the 888. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I play the $100 Showtime. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes the $66 contest on DraftKings, they've turned into a fucking top-heavy garbage contest. It's 50,000 to first, 15,000 to second, and fifth place is like $1,000. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I was playing like for a week. I was playing like 5 lineups into that when it was like 25,000, 15,000, 10,000, 8, like something flatter up there. But I'm not going $35,000 between first and second. Get the fuck out of here. Just so you could say 50K to first. I ain't playing it. I'm sorry. I know I see all the people in there that I know playing it. I ain't gonna do it. I'm a nit. I ain't gonna fucking do it, Eric. So when people ask me like, what do I do? It's very similar to in NBA. You know what I'm doing. You're aware of what I'm doing in NBA cash games this year.
Yes.
Right. Most people don't get what I'm doing. I have to explain it in the Discord often. I am not playing cash games. I'm entering cash contests. I'm entering a lineup into them, but I have made absolutely no decisions on my cash play. I don't make any decisions. I'm using RotoGrinders projections, and whatever the mathematically optimal lineup is, I am playing. Now, obviously, after lock, if D'Lo's out and this guy moves, and then I just lock in the players that are still in, and is there a better lineup that I could have with the current players that are there? So I'll switch out like that. And I'm doing that across 3 sites. And I'm trying to play 60% head-to-heads, 35% double-ups, and 5% triple-ups, 3-mans. But that, I put the little squiggle there, the little tilde, about, because it depends. If it's a 2-game slate, I'm not going to play 3. I'm not going to play 10%. The variance is so ridiculous. And then depending on what I see in that lineup, I look at the lineup sometimes and I go, I would never play this lineup, right? I look at these lineups and go, how is Jordan Clarkson not in this lineup? Like I would just plug in Clarkson and then build the lineup, and whatever happens. But based on these projections, this is the best median lineup, and I used to play cash games like that. I'm gonna build the cash game lineup. I'm going to use the projections, but still, like, the standard deviation of these players are different. The knapsack problem doesn't know that, right? Doesn't know that Anthony Edwards could put up 4 points today, right? Or 40, right? He doesn't know. It just knows that the median is like 23, and it's like, he's 4,500, so he sounds good in your shooting guard spot, right? Doesn't understand the swings of that. So maybe in cash games you don't play him because it's not a narrow range of outcomes, but if we played this slate over, that's what a median is. If we played this slate over 1,000,000 times, technically that lineup is the best. Technically, the swings will be bigger, but you only have 1 slate. So do you want to minimize your swings to be safer? Or do you want to play what's supposedly, if the model's accurate, the most median lineup? To me, a lot of times in the past, that lineup looks like, this is not a good cash lineup. And I decide to play something that's similar, but not exactly that, and I lose. And that lineup would have won, right? Right? And sometimes you look at that lineup and go, this is horrible. This is not going to go well. And you know what happens? It doesn't go well. But the differences between the two, I think, are so marginal, possibly, this is my hypothesis, that it's so marginal that can I take out all of the decision-making? So essentially, I have to spend, my efficiency is nothing, right? It's whatever it tells me. It takes me a minute to do, right? As long as I enter all the contests and get it in before lock, I don't have to weigh, do I play this guy or this guy? Do I play this lineup or this lineup? I could do that for my GPP lineup. So now I could spend all my time thinking about GPP, knowing that at 6:59 p.m. Eastern, I could press a button, I could export the projections and put it into Excel. It doesn't matter if there's an optimizer around. It's just projections. And I'm going to play that lineup. A lot of people also play that lineup. Maybe it's duplicated a bunch. Doesn't matter. I'm playing as if it's a stock. I'm playing hashtag, the stock symbol, $ optimal. Right? I'm playing RGOPTO. That stock. Right? And that's it. And then all I'm doing is saying I'm taking $20,000. I'm playing that stock 10%, this contest selection, across 3 sites to diversify myself. And I'm holding. I'm a holdler or whatever. How do you pronounce? You have to put the L before the D before the L. I'm a holdler until the end of the NBA season. So it's like me investing in a stock. I don't know what it's a company. I don't have any control what the company's going to do. Are they going to announce a new product today? I'm not in charge. All I'm doing is taking $20,000 and giving it to that company and say, I hope I turn this into more money by the end of 6 months. But that's not playing cash games. Like right. I'm investing in a projection set. That's essentially what I'm doing, into a math problem. And do I believe I'll make more money doing that, or at least the same amount of money doing that than I would having to make the decisions for myself? Now, that's the hypothesis. What's the answer? I don't know. But I'm willing to invest $20,000 because that's how much I would be playing anyway. So it's like, if the difference is, like, if it turns out at the end of the season I make, on my $20,000, I make $16,500, okay. And then what would I have made if I did it myself? $14,800? Right? I don't know, because I'm not doing them both at the same time. But like, if I were to describe like that as DFS play, like, I'm not describing DFS play. I'm describing like I'm investing in a robot, right?
Right.
And people look at that and go, well, that's not playing DFS. We said last night, literally last night, D'Angelo Russell was ruled out. Jared Culver was ruled out. That was after lock. The lineup that I was playing before that had Steph Curry and Michael Bridges in it. They projected the best in that line. I mean, like, it was a cash lineup. Yep. When that happened, D'Lo was out, and I had players that were locked in already. The RG model had Bradley Beal and Anthony Edwards slightly higher projected together than Curry and Bridges. And you know what the first thought I said in my head? How the fuck do I play Anthony Edwards? Like, dude, obviously it's Curry and Bridges. Obviously Curry and Bridges is the right choice, right? With all the Suns out and everything, he's 5,300. He's safe. Give me 25 points. Steph, give me 45 points. I'm good, right? And I look at Beal at 10K plus, and I go, why am I paying 10K plus for Beal when I can play 9,200 for Curry? I know Westbrook is sitting or whatever, but, you know, Beal is high volatile also. And Edwards is, who knows? He has a usage rate, but he never makes a shot. So
I played. It's funny.
So, but the point is that I played Beal and Edwards. Beal puts up 70. Edwards puts up 40. Curry puts up like 35, and Bridges puts up 50. Yeah. Right, 50. Like, the difference is like 60 plus points. If I played Curry and Bridges last night, I played on DraftKings. I played about $1,100. My $1,100 would have ended up being like $200. Instead of, I played Edwards, who was 1% owned in my cash games. With Beal.
Yeah, I played him in tournaments.
But tournaments a different story. I get it in tournaments.
But that's what's funny, is it's like, I played him in tournaments. He's unowned in tournaments. And even me, who I play like the guys who, you know, who shoot 2 for 15 every single night. And even I'm like, oh God, Anthony Edwards, like this. I know he makes sense, but can I really click on Anthony Edwards? And that's in a tournament I'm trying to win first, right? So yeah, it's just funny.
Right, but I ended up making on DraftKings about $1,000. My 1,100 turned into 2,100. Now, so in a one slate sample size, you could say, well, that's luck. It's like, yeah, but that's if it's a stock, like what? Yeah, so you'll get lucky on some days and you'll get unlucky on other days. Right? You'll have a day where you're playing a guy and he's 40%. He's a normal cash play and everything, and he gets injured in the first fucking quarter. And then obviously the 60% of people that didn't play him, they cash over you, and that's other people got lucky. I mean, like, it's this. I'm judging it over a season, 200 slates. So like, yeah, sometimes I'm gonna get bailed out. Sometimes I'm gonna shove in, all in with a draw, get called, and then outdraw them. And like, yes, I got lucky there. And then sometimes you make it and sometimes you miss. But you were making the bet based on your fold equity, getting the other person to fold, and then you drew out on the 3-outer. And then, okay, you got... But you're going to be playing that hand theoretically, like 100, 300 times, 400 times, like over the course, you want to be profitable on that decision over the course of everything. So my hypothesis is, if I take away my decisions, is that going to be more or less profitable than if I thought of it myself? So that's the baseline. That's kind of like the game theory thing of like play whoever you want or the coin flip. If two guys are equally projected and equally owned, what does it matter which one you choose, right? Flip a coin. It's like, how do you pick players by flipping a coin? Well, you're telling me that they're about equal. So I'm testing that from a season-long perspective in cash games of, are the decisions that I would make actually negatively benefit? Is it negative? Could I just ride out whatever the projections say for an entire season and make money? And would I be making more money than if I just made the decisions myself? And that's the hypothesis. So
yeah,
I can't test that over a week. I have to test that over a whole fucking season. And I'm willing to. I know my 20,000 isn't going to turn to zero because I'm only investing 10% per slate. So as it goes up and down, obviously your investment goes up and down. So I'm aware of that. But to other people, they would look at that and go, like, to me, that's what I'm doing is like the sane thing, yet it would look insane to most people.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about the experiment that you're doing is like the downstream effects of, if, and not even just is it more profitable, is it in the same ballpark of profitability over the long haul? And then again, where does the benefits of, you literally never thought about this thing, the only time you spent was clicking a couple buttons that you would have clicked anyway, you never had to think about it, you got to use your time elsewhere, whether that's on tournament lineups or something else in your real life, outside of DFS. The time savings and the psychological savings, how much is that worth, right? If you make more money, sure, but yeah, then that's obviously good. But okay, if you would have made, you used the example earlier, if you would have made 16,000 doing it your old way, and you make 14,000 this way, is that 2,000? All the time and effort that you save, maybe it's still worth it, right? But it's just the whole premise of the experiment, I think is really interesting, and it's kind of this balancing thing that we're talking about, a different view into this balancing thing that everybody has to approach differently, right? Like, I enjoy the part of like building lineups and crafting lineups and all that kind of stuff. So that would be part of that impact for me too. But like, if somebody just showed up and was like, look, Blender is just clicking it, here's his process. It's basically he's just using a computer to build this team, which I imagine that, you're not the only person on the planet that does this, that's for sure. But I can see how Blender is doing that. And that seems like the way I want to, that fits me best for DFS, right? It's the best shot at making some money. I have a general idea of about how much expected value I have in my teams. And I know about how much time it's going to take. I know all that kind of stuff. And I don't have to put any psychological stress on myself, blah, 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 blah. Like, that could be just the stone nut way for certain people to play DFS. It probably isn't for me, but like, that could be the absolute perfect way for plenty of people to play DFS.
But I mean, I'm still doing my GPP. Like, you pretty much can't do this for GPPs.
No.
Or anything like that. I mean, you could have automated processes and build leverage into your lineups. Top players do have this. And also, there are plenty of cash players that use aggregated projections.
Yeah.
And so they're not tilted towards one project. They have their own model. They use this site's model, that site's projections, and they kind of blend it all together. And then maybe still they make a choice of, well, I need to make sure to have this guy in the lineup. Like, they're doing that. Like, that, I would think that that's better. But without running an experiment, I don't know. I'm transparently saying this. If you play me in head-to-heads on DraftKings, FanDuel, or Yahoo, you will know my lineup. Like, you will know exactly what, I mean, there's no hiding. You know exactly what I'm playing. Okay? Now there's a negative benefit to that. That's why I'm not playing $109 head-to-heads. I'm playing low. I'm playing some 5s and 10s and 20s and limiting it to 1. So I don't want, because I could easily be exploited, but I can't be exploited for enough of my volume that maybe you could knock me off in a $5 head-to-head by knowing exactly what lineup I have and playing the 2v. That's why I don't play 3-mans as much, because I know I could be exploited. So I'm trying to play the largest field double-ups. I'm trying to get the most diverse. On FanDuel, I'm not playing the 20-mans. I'm playing the 100-mans, right? Just so I can be exploited the least. For people that are even paying attention. Some people may not even give a shit. But the fact that I'm doing this, it doesn't... And the thing that I constantly try to say is that you don't... There are two things. Two very big things. If you're going to do what I do, you have to be really good at contest selection, and you have to be committed to doing this no matter what. This is every day. It doesn't matter. There's no days off, no nothing like that. It's like the stock market. I'm not in control. I'm going to enter lineups. I'm going to enter contests, and I'm going to play whatever the goddamn lineup is, and that's what it is. I don't have to sweat anything. I have nothing to control. I could go to sleep and wake up 6 months later, let me see how much money's come left. So if you're going to just decide, oh, I'm going to play that lineup some days and not other days, then you're not doing what I'm doing. You're playing cash games. I'm investing in a stock. So if you ask me what I'm doing on a specific day, it doesn't matter, right? Don't care about what I do. And then secondly, that it doesn't mean what I'm doing is correct, right? I'm testing. This is an experiment. I could easily turn my $20,000 into $7,000 by the end of the year and be like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Right? Right? Maybe this is a negative EV approach. But I don't know until I do it. I'm speculating, just like with you in the top shots.
Yep.
I'm saying I don't mind taking $20,000 that I would normally be playing cash games with anyway, which is only 10% of my bankroll to begin with. Because look at the downstream effect of that. I'm playing cash games with a bankroll of 20,000. My normal bankroll is 200,000. So when I play 2,000 on a slate, I'm really only playing 1% of my bankroll. So right. You know how nitty that is, right? So in comparison, me playing with $20,000 is not like is not that big of an investment. Knowing that I'm churning money. Like I'm not playing $20,000 a slate. I'm playing $20,000 as an investment. If that got down to $5,000, I'd be playing $500 a slate because that's 10% of that number. So based on Kelly, you're not going to get down to zero. I mean, yeah, you could go on a really bad run and get down to $300 or something. Then you're playing $30 a slate, and you'll probably never get it back up to 20,000 at that point. But that's a different way of thinking. So when people ask, like, oh, why did you play this guy? Like, I'm not playing. That's like, well, why did you buy Apple? Why did Apple only return in the earnings call? They only got 1.7 billion in services. Why did that happen? I'm not in control of this. I'm playing whatever this is. They go, well, do you think this guy's a good player? That guy, I don't think any like I'm playing it as a stock. Don't ask me what I'm going to do, because I'm going to tell you like yesterday. Someone literally asked me that yesterday. Oh my God, the projections say that I should change Curry and Bridges to Beal and Edwards. And several people played Edwards last week where he put up like fucking 4 points. Because he shot like 3 for 14. And like several people that try to do what I do for whatever reason, even though they're not playing every day, they're not contest selecting, they're not whatever. They say, I fucking never again. They're like Anthony Edwards, don't give a fuck. And I even had to say, I said, if it was up to me, I said it like this. If it was up to me, I'd stay with Curry and Bridges. Like if it was up, if I had a choice in the matter, if this was me not doing what I'm doing right now, I would look at Beal and Anthony Edwards in my cash lineup and go, fuck you. The difference in the median was like 0.3. So like we're not. It's not. Are you gonna do that for that much volatility? Like no.
Right.
And then of course, if I did do that, I would have lost. Right. I got the upside out of both players and ended up making up. I had, Kendrick Nunn, Snowflake. I got, I didn't play Cody Zeller in cash. I had Ayton. I played Ayton over Gobert. Right? That's a 48-point swing right there. Right? But everything made up for it when Curry busts and Anthony Edwards puts up 9x and Beal puts up 70. But that's the whole point of having a whole lineup. Right? That sometimes you have to play players that are volatile to make up for a guy that does snowflake. I mean, that's a concept even in GPPs. Mm-hmm. That if you play too safe of a lineup, it's like you're really never going to get the first place. You need to embrace some volatility in it. But in the same way that I said, to bring it back into the beginning of like the nitty style of play, like for me to do this, to play cash games like this, like it's a stock, like it's not sexy. It's not championed. It's not, oh, you're just going to grind that. Or people question it. They go, they'll say, there's no way that you could be profitable doing it this way. Right? Because then it almost sounds too good to be true. You're telling me that I just have to sign up for Roto Grinders for $40 a month and press a button? And it be within the community guidelines? I've even said, I'll tell you right now, I'm not allowed to say, based on an NDA, what DraftKings tells me, but I can tell you what I tell DraftKings. I've had conversations about what's the difference between lineup sellers and optimizers. And according to community guidelines, projections are perfectly fine. There's no way to ban projections, right? Yeah. There's not, like, because you could have your own. I mean, like, give me the Excel file. The thing is, the optimizer I could do in an Excel solver. I could do it the same way. It's the optimizer's not going to stop me from doing this, right? Do I have to make two choices and X out like two bad players? Like, to me, that's a joke. I've said it to DraftKings. I said the difference. If you're going to ban lineup sellers, what's the difference between that and come here and push my button? To me, there's no difference.
Agreed.
Right. There's no difference at all. And if you're going to allow me to push a button and get a lineup and still play it, why shouldn't I? Right? And as long as I don't take that lineup and then tell other people to play that lineup. You know how stupid that sounds? When I could say, well, I can't tell you what the lineup is, but if you go to this web address and press that button, then it's perfectly fine because it's our projections that we're sharing. I see the hypocrisy of that. One's allowed and one's not allowed, and that makes absolutely no sense. The problem is that no matter what you do, you can't. It is what it is. It's computerized trading. It's like you're not gonna. It's not gonna. There's no way to kick people off for using projections, and then you can't for sharing projections, as long as they're not employing a strategy where they're like pooling their money together and trying to take advantage of other people. Then 30 people in a contest have the same fucking lineup, and then you have to ban project. I'm going to keep on. If it's profitable, why shouldn't I do it? Mm-hmm. Right? Why shouldn't I? To me, that's not unethical. I'm saying what I'm doing.
Yeah,
it is what it is. Some people question on whether or not like the projections are good enough. Like, can you do this and be profitable? A lot of people question that you can't. You have to put some amount of effort. I'm saying fuck you. I think maybe let's see. I'm putting the same thing. Jonathan Bales buying a $35,000 fucking John Morant card. I'm saying here's my $20,000. I'm betting on the RG projection team. I'm betting on Jamino's model. Right? I could do this with I could go to Labs. I could do the same fucking thing. I could go to Labs. I could go to ETR. I could do it for their model. I could aggregate all three, and then whatever lineup is fucking there you go, and do that also. If it comes out that you could do any one of those four things and come out with X% plus, then you could judge. To me, Eric, that's the baseline. right? That's if you can't get to that point where a monkey can press a button and enter a lineup, you have to see, can you beat that, let alone beat other players. So to me, that's the responsible way to go. But no, to me, no, to this date, at least not publicly, or that I've talked to people, anyone's ever like consistently done this, where you could say that. I mean, this is not how this is not how you judge the accuracy of a projection model by its top optimal lineup. That doesn't matter, right? It's just solving a math problem at that point. But the problem comes in is that let's say I do prove. Let's say I turn $20,000 into $60,000. So I make a nice 3x return. Obviously, I'm doing this publicly. Mm-hmm. Does that mean like more people jump on and next thing you know, like more than half of your contests have the same lineup, and then once more than half of your contests have the same lineup, then cash games become unplayable. Or is there enough variance that it doesn't happen, that you could play multiple types of things? Like, to me, this is the matter of, does DFS become, at least in cash games, more of a solved game? And maybe, to use other people's points, that by me doing this publicly, if it works, that it's possible that I'm destroying my own edge in cash games. I shouldn't be telling people this. I shouldn't be doing this publicly. But you know what my response to that is? I know you didn't ask for it. I know I kind of ask my own questions. People already do this. So like to me, what I'm doing, people have done for 5 years, right? They've aggregated projections. They've shared projection models. They've used one versus. I know I can open up at 7 o'clock. And I know some of the usernames and know that's the Labs optimal, that's the ETR optimal, that's the blended Labs plus ETR optimal, that's the blended 3 optimal. That's like all I have to see is who gets unlocked at 7 o'clock for the early games, and like, oh, this guy, Zeller plus, okay, I know what lineup they have. Like, there's still 6 slots left, and I know exactly their lineup because I literally have looked at it. Because I have access to the same fucking projections that these fucking people have, right? So I look at this and go, like, at least I'm being transparent about it versus doing it in the shadows.
Yeah, I think it's a super interesting, not even just like the specifics of this experiment, but just the premise of this thought experiment as it relates to kind of everything we talked about for most of this conversation, where it's like, okay, just in a vacuum, this could be, quote unquote, the optimal way to play cash games. I don't know. Maybe it is. We'll find out. Maybe we won't find out. Who fucking knows, right? But that's not even really the point. The point is like, this could be the way that you should do it. This could be, you're like, dude, all I have to do is show up and click a button and like I'm going to have X return on my money by the end of the year. I can pretty much project what my 10,000, 20,000, what my $500 or whatever. I can pretty much project what that's going to do, all else being equal, obviously. But like, that could be, but that, like, even that like return, right? That may not be the best fit for everybody for how they should play. It could be the absolute best fit. Like, that could be the thing that some people should do, not even playing, like, don't play tournaments, come in, pay your $40 a month for roto grinders, let it give you the lineup you want, and take an extra turn, because you're, like you said, you're just basically buying stock in roto grinders. That could be the best for some people. It could be awful for other people. Whether it's psychologically or your risk profile or your goals, right? Or the upside, whatever, or like you just enjoy the strategy behind making that team, whatever. There's tons of all these different variables, but figuring out the blend of all those variables that fit for you is like, so unbelievably important, and something that, like you talked about, this never gets discussed. Right? We're framing it in a way revolving around this kind of experiment that you're doing, but like nobody talks about people talk about contest selection, but like my contest, not only is my contest selection different than yours, it should be different than yours, right? And yours should be different than somebody else's, etc. Figuring that out is obviously hard. I'm not saying that I've even figured it out for myself, because I probably haven't even thought as deeply about it as we discussed today. But like, people really do, like, we really should have those kind of conversations a lot more, like even more than a lot of the stuff that we talk about every single week here, right? Like, because that's, like you said, you can't make a losing player into a good player by the right contest selection.
So you can make a winning player either more consistent, a higher ROI, or just less minimization of risk, because
or more upside if he wants to go the other way. If you want to be riskier but you want to try to capitalize on more upside, you can go that way, right? Or wherever on that pendulum. But figuring out that, like, it has huge effects on your ROI, huge effects on your upside, whatever. And yeah, no, I mean, nobody talks about that.
Right. Because but to go back to the very beginning, I don't mind, like, you're taking your money, you're investing in these NFTs that you can't withdraw from. Just like, there's no way I'm putting money into that. Are you kidding me? And I'm the one that's like, well, let me take a look at QQQ. Let me take a look at SPY. Let me think. I'm buying EFT. I'm buying old school EFTs that are like, well, year over year, they're like a 2.8% return or maybe 3.4% return. I'm like, I'm parking my money. I'm putting $100,000. So like 3% of $100,000, like, give me $3,000. Like, just give it to me. Like, all I have to do is put this in and you'll give me $3,000. Like, just fucking give it to me. Like, I don't need any more than that. Like, this is the equivalent of me pressing the button, building a lineup in cash games, right?
Yep.
So if I find out at the end of the after 6 months that I double my money, let's say I just double it, right? That's $20,000 for pressing a button every day. Like, and it's not like the Lost button. It's not the button on Lost where you have to, or the world blows up, right? It's not that stress every 100 and whatever seconds. So why not? Now it may turn out that I lose. It may turn out that way. But if I found the easy button and I get X return, and maybe you get more with some other type of strategy, and that's perfectly fine. The same thing on the stock market. I can't believe you're not buying GameStop at $360, hoping that Reddit floods it even more. Like, are you kidding me? Are you shitting me? The Tootsie Roll. We're all buying Bed Bath and Beyond. And then you see it spike up. I'm not holding the fucking bag when that fucking drops. This isn't natural. I'll get my index funds. I'll have my money market account with my 1.8% interest, and I'll move money around, and I'll be able to pay a car payment or a mortgage payment that's what I need a trophy. I need a champion. Champion the knit. I think that's what we need to do more. To champion the knit. Or maybe people don't have that attitude. Maybe you think I'm stupid. So send in your comments or questions at theoryofdfs.com. Because people ask about bankroll management and contest selection and stuff. But I hope, because me and you are different players, but not like dramatically different. But even so, we both, you look at what I do and go, well, that's smart for you, but not smart for you. And I look at you and I go, yeah, I couldn't do what you do because it doesn't fit what I want to do. And the amount, the shades of that, people think in terms of it's either this or that. It's like, no, there's probably 50 different shades.
Yep.
And they all could be correct for you. And figuring out that rather than asking, hey, Eric, what do you do? How could I do exactly what you do? Isn't as beneficial as figuring out what you're good at and doing it your way, and obviously tracking your progress and going, well, based on my rotor tracker, I'm this X, Y, and Z. I should play golf more and not as much football. And then there you go. I'm very good at GPPs in MLB, but I'm horrible at cash. So then don't play fucking cash games in MLB anymore. You found out but I'm good at cash games and soccer. So now you're just playing cash games and soccer and GPPs and MLB. And there's one guy that constantly challenges you to $215 head-to-heads. That's horrible for no apparent reason. And he challenges it to you in NHL. And you know what? You know nothing about NHL. But you know that you can go to your NHL projections and get the optimal lineup, and somehow that beats that guy 80% of the time. So you know what you should be doing? You should be challenging him every day, right? But I don't have access to that guy. That guy just doesn't like you. I mean, like it could be anything. So I think the overall perspective, like what you said, is that there's no one size fits all risk profile and contest selection and how you manage your portfolio of assets. I'm using, stock terminology. But there's no one size fits all. So instead of reaching out and finding what's the one correct way, I think it's more beneficial to figure out the best way for you, and it's going to be different than everyone else's.
Yep, 100%.
So Erik, you're at Erik Beimfohr on Twitter. On Blender HD on Twitter. You could find the theory of daily fantasy sports. We talk about this a lot in risk management chapter 9. All these types of concepts. So you could pick that up. 15-hour DFS audio masterclass at theoryofdfs.com. And we'll be back hopefully next Tuesday if Erik doesn't disappear.